Willkommen zurück hier am Sonntag auf der Austria Comic Con in Wels. Ganz kurz noch eine Frage, wie geht's euch heute? Das finde ich interessant, dass alle Leute, denen es gut geht, sich auf die linke Seite gesetzt haben. Jetzt muss ich die rechte Seite fragen, geht's euch auch gut? Sehr schön, wunderbar, das freut mich riesig und ich möchte euch dann am Abend um 16 Uhr hier auf der Hauptbühne gerne ein paar coole Dinge schenken. Und das größte Highlight, das wir heute hergeben, ist tatsächlich eine limitierte Nintendo Switch in der Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Edition. Es ist unglaublich, aber ich sage gleich dazu, alle, die diese Gewinnspielkarte ausgefüllt haben und eingeworfen haben. Erstens, es gelten die gestern ausgefüllten Karten heute nicht mehr. Wer gestern teilgenommen hat, muss heute noch einmal teilnehmen. Ihr findet die Karten und die Einwurfboxen einerseits in der Halle beim Stand von Rudy Games, das ist H74, beziehungsweise im Eingangsbereich beim VIP-Eingang. Und ganz wichtig, Preise werden nur verlost an Leute, die auch wirklich hier anwesend sind. Also falls ihr was mit nach Hause nehmen wollt, und ganz ehrlich, wer will das nicht, bitte heute um 16 Uhr hier sein. Und damit, finde ich, haben wir genug der einleitenden Worte gesprochen. Ladies and Gentlemen, let me hear it for Kevin SORBO! Yeah, if Hercules does that, I would shut up. That is, yeah. That is awesome. Yes, your mic. The thing is, today is the second day of Austria Comic Con. You're doing many cons all over the globe, and is there something that is different at Austria Comic Con than in different cons that you have already attended? Something that you like, especially about the country, the people?
You speak German. You know what? Not really. I mean, it comes down, people, you know, if you're fans, they're fans, and they come up and they're wonderful and they're nice, and you get a lot of stories, certainly with Hercules and Andromeda, that they grew up with the series. They love making me feel old. But you get the stories from people that say, you know, this is a show I watched with my mom, my dad, my grandfather, and maybe some of them have passed away since then, and they get very emotional with that. And that tends to be an ongoing thing, because that's what television does. There are certain shows that unite families. And I had that as a kid growing up as well, you know. So from my family, it was MASH, it was Bewitched, it was, you know, Happy Days, things like that. So those bring back memories of spending those times with your families, and it's been great. But I mean, it's fun to be back over here because it's been so long. And I mean, I've been to the one in FedCon up in Bonn. I've done the one in London a few times. Did one in Spain not too long ago. But it's been a while since I've been back in Austria, so it's good to be back.
You said that you like that we speak German. Do you speak German?
No.
Because
mein Deutsch is nicht so gut. But the important thing is ein Weizbier, bitte. So. And of course, Chris Kringelmarket, I get the Glühwein. I love the Glühwein. So I'm dealing with alcohol here. But you know, I've lost most of the phrases that I knew. My wife speaks pretty well.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So I just let her be the tour guide.
I can announce we did a video with Sam in German, and it was awesome. You will check this out on our socials in, I think, a couple of days. But the thing is, when you talked about German, there is a little game that I like to play on the stage, because I have 3 cards prepared with German words. And one thing I say in advance, you will not know what these words mean, but I promise you, they are not dirty words or anything.
Scheiße. Okay.
So the first word would be this.
Flugzeug. Flugzeug. It's an airport.
It's
Airport?
airplane.
Yeah. Airplane.
Airplane.
I should know that, but I was close.
The second one.
Is that an F or a T?
An F.
Fernseher? Fernseher?
Fernseher.
Fernseher.
Yeah. This is actually where you are on most of the time, because that's TV in
That's
German.
television.
Yeah, Fernseher is the TV. And one last word,
Okay.
very quickly. Let's do this.
Oh my God. That's not a real word.
That is an actual word.
There was when my kids brought this up the other day to me when they were little. They would get on my computer and they didn't really know words yet. They knew words, but they didn't know, you know, they would just put a bunch of letters together and it would be that many letters in a row. Like that's, I don't know, there's like 20 letters there. And they would have me just read it for them and they would laugh. And that's what I feel like this is. So I'm gonna give it a go. Fußboden Schließmask Einwellig. Something like that.
That is good.
Really? And what is that? What is the real pronunciation?
It's Fußboden-Schleifmaschinenverleih. It's an actual word from an actual language, and it means it's a rental store where you can rent out machines to sand your floor.
That's going to be very useful for me one day.
Yes.
I'll use that a lot.
The most important word in any language. Sometimes with German, I'm not actually sure if it's a word or a sentence. English is easier to handle.
I remember when I went to one of my high school reunions and some of the old teachers showed up. My old math teacher showed up. I don't know how you would say it here, but the Pythagorean theorem?
Yeah, the Satz des Pythagoras.
So I came up to Mr. Simidat, my math teacher, and I said, Norm, the Pythagorean theorem, never used it, never needed it, because, you know, you know, I wish schools would teach you more about life, you know, how to balance a checkbook, how to get a mortgage, I mean, they should prepare kids for the more reality stuff, because I think there's a lot of things you learn in school, you kind of go, I'll never use that, but that's sort of the way it is, you know.
Okay, let's hear it from the audience. I'm sure some of you have prepared
It's so bright up here. It's hard to see out there.
So basically, you did my work. That is very awesome. I love you.
Why can't we turn the lights up out there?
Können wir beim
possible?
Publikum auch das Licht aufdrehen vielleicht?
It's like I'm blinded by the lights.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woohoo. All right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Now you see us. Your fault. As we all would maybe like to know any hilarious stories or bloopers behind the scenes where something felt a little awkward and you laughed it off or something.
What, you know, there were a lot of bloopers every day. I mean, I even know in Andromeda there was a lot of stuff that happened, and I would always tell the continuity person, the script supervisor, because they decide, you know, the directors say print that take, don't print that take, and I would say print that one and put it on the blooper reel, and a lot of times they didn't do it, which was very frustrating for me, because there were a lot of funny things that happened either on purpose or just an accident, and so it's hard for me to sit there and remember every single one. Because there were so many weird things that did happen. I guess I could talk about. On Andromeda, I talked about it yesterday at the VIP, we showed an episode of Hercules, but on Andromeda, when they first designed the ship, they had sort of like, the ship was more like reddish and maybe a flesh tone colors and things like that. And we had a weapon that was similar to something like this called the Force Lance, and to me it just looked like a dildo. And that sort of became the joke on the set. For every woman that came to guest star in the show, I would always, out of the holster, pull out the Force Lance and say, have you seen my Force Lance? And it was something I did to every single woman on every single episode, and we put together a blooper reel at the end of me saying that basically like 80 times to 80 different women. And the last season they gave me a double one, so I had the double dildo going. And so and one of the last episodes of Hercules of Andromeda, where we were stuck inside my cabin, and I was with Becca and Rade, and I had a cabinet back here where weapons were, because the ship had been overtaken by the Magog. And so I went in there, and unbeknownst to me, they put a Hercules wig and a sword in there. And I got a good laugh, and then the second take, they got me again, where they put a very large, giant dildo. And I didn't laugh. I looked at it, and they kept the cameras rolling, and I said, I looked at Becca and Rod, and I said, it's a long story, and I limped for a week. So, but there was stuff that we had so much fun on that show, and so many weird things that happened. So it was, there was one episode where I ran in, we were on a planet, and it was like a Western planet. We had the saloon doors that open up, and I come rushing in because the place is like the people behind me chasing me, and I picked up one of these giant paper mache boulders, and it looks like it should weigh, 700 kilos, and it weighed maybe 2 kilos. And I picked it up and I ran through the doors, and I stopped, and everybody looked at me, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm having a Hercules flashback. So I took the boulder back outside. So there was all kinds of funny stuff like that.
And Andromeda and Hercules ran for an incredible amount of time.
12 years, 12 straight years, yeah.
And there is one show has 110 episodes, Andromeda, and in Hercules you played in 111 episodes.
The first season would have been the equal to 22 more episodes, but it's 5 2-hour movies.
Yeah.
And we shot those each for a little over 2.5 months. So it was a whole year for the movies as well, before the series became a series.
But do you find it funny, or is it just a coincidence that both series you did are basically exactly the same in terms of length?
Yeah, it was coincidence. I mean, the Hercules one was supposed to go, season 7 only had like 7 episodes in it. And the only reason why that happened is initially I think Universal was mad that I didn't sign up to do 3 more seasons. But they were happy that I did Andromeda because Universal Studios owned the Sci-Fi Channel as well. So it would have been good. I thought it would have been good to finish the full series on Hercules, but they didn't do it. And Andromeda would have gone 44 more episodes, but the company that owned us went into bankruptcy, and they had to freeze all their assets. And we were making money for them, but everything else they had as assets were doing bad. So they had to, unfortunately, had to cancel our series. It should have been 2 more years on Andromeda.
You once said the funny thing about TV is that once you start to do it, you never get the time to watch it. Yes. So the thing is, you told us yesterday you were working 16 hours a day on Hercules. So when was the first time that you could actually sit down and watch the finished episodes?
Well, I would watch the episodes because I was also one of the producers on the show as well. So I would watch dailies more than the final episodes. What's weird now is it's still in 60 countries. It airs on 2 different outlets in America as well. If I'm flipping channels and I'm in the gym working out or something and a Hercules episode is on, or one of my kids maybe popped it in because occasionally they like to watch it, I remember every episode in its entirety. But if I'm looking at just one scene, I know that's me talking, but I have zero memory of that scene, and that's a weird feeling because I think I've done so much work through the years that you just lose track of those things, and that's the weird thing, is getting used to seeing myself up on a screen. This is kind of funny. I remember I was in the Cannes Film Festival a couple years ago, and it was the most recent Pirates of the Caribbean, and Johnny Depp, I don't know him well, but we know each other. And he was sitting right behind me at the screening of his own movie. And just a week ago, I saw him in an interview saying, I've never watched any of my movies, I never watch them, I don't like to watch them. And then he's sitting right behind me watching his movie. So I busted him on it. I told him, you're watching your own movie, you realize that. But, I find it a useful tool to watch yourself. I find it a good idea as an actor because we can see where you can improve, or maybe something was good and you say, you know what, I like that I did that. But I'm my own worst critic. I'm the one that's probably the hardest on myself, watching myself. And I think a lot of people are that way no matter what they do. I think we're all kind of hard on ourselves. So, but that's not a bad thing. It's a way to improve yourself, and that's good.
When Hercules and Andromeda were released, it was basically the standard TV schedule. 1 episode a week, a new episode every week for the season, and so on. Nowadays, with outlets like Netflix and Amazon, TV shows usually get released 1 season a day, so you can watch the entire season in a binge. And the thing is, what would be your preferred method right now? Would you still have the episode a week schedule, or just?
That's kind of the way it was forever. But the changes come because of the advance of technology, of course. And we live in such an impatient age right now. We're all impatient. Everything is these, 10-second sound bites, and it's, I try to get the attention of my own kids. It's nearly impossible. So I think that's just going to happen more and more and more, so people can decide when they want to watch it and what time they want to watch it. So that's not going to change. I don't think it's going to really go back to even the shows that still do that on network television. A lot of it is for myself. I'll buy the whole series, and just watch it when I want. And it's people lead busier lives. I think we got a lot of other stuff, distractions going on. So I think it's best to keep up. Let people have their own schedule.
And the thing is, you mentioned that sometime flipping through channels, you find an episode of Hercules just showing on an outlet. It's still on in many countries. It's also on in Austria, most always. So, what was my question? Yeah. Do you think that one of the reasons for that is that there is nothing like it that is being made now, that the show is still so relevant? And the thing is, if they were to make a show like Hercules today, what would be the main differences?
Oh, I think they'd make it much more violent and much more sexual. I love the humor in it, and I love the fact that I got so many letters from schools and libraries and saying that mythology has become very popular again and people wanted to learn about it. So once again, the power of television. I think it was kind of fun. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Is there a question?
I thought I saw another hand
Ja,
pop
genau.
up.
Da auf der Seite.
Where's it at?
Ja, der Herr in Rot, Schwarz.
I know there's one over here.
Da.
But
Okay, also.
we got one over here with the gentleman with
Ja,
the hat as
und
well.
da auch, genau, mit dem Hut.
Oh, they got that one. We'll get you next.
Ja.
Hi. Loud enough? Okay. As I was growing up with your TV series, and as many people in here, I'm wondering, what is your secret? You're a pretty handsome man, and are you maybe really a demigod? Are you really Hercules?
I don't think so. I did tell women I was half God from the waist down. So,
It's a good answer, sir. It's a good answer.
Since he was a half God. It's funny, when I was doing this series, I was pretty big, and I had the long hair and everything, and I had a hard time. I was living in New Zealand 10 months a year, but even coming back to America, it was 2 months. If I went to gyms to work out, the male ego is an interesting thing, because there would be guys that would, especially if I went to, in New Zealand, I'd go to a pub to watch a rugby match or something and have a beer. There would be eventually 1 or 2 drunk guys who would want to come up and have a fight. And they would say, so you're Hercules, you think you're tough and all this kind of stuff. There was one guy at the gym one time, he came up and it was the first year the series was on. So nobody had seen it yet, we're filming the movies. But we were having more and more of the locals as extras and actors. And so this guy comes up while I was working out. He says, hey, you're that Hercules fella, ain't you? And I said, well, I'm an actor playing Hercules. I'm really not Hercules. He goes, oh, you're from America? And I said, yeah. He goes, I've been in America, I hated it. And I looked at him and I said, well, don't come back. We have enough assholes there already. So I thought it was a pretty good comeback on the circumstance, but as I walked away, I thought he would throw a weight at my head or something, but I was proud of the way I came back with it that quick, though. And we had a hat,
Yes.
right there in the hat.
Just one thing to you. I used the Pythagorean theorem at work, and I'm pretty sure my math teacher got the chills. But my question that I have, obviously you're a funny guy and you seem to love jokes on set. But what is offset? Obviously you get to grow to each other, you get to know your cast members, you grow friends over the time. You met your wife on set, didn't you? And is there someone special that you probably like to prank offset?
There was one guy in a set of Andromeda that we would always get him in some kind of weird prank. He was one of the wardrobe guys, but he was such a great sense of humor. He let us get away with so much stuff, and he was very. he was very particular with his clothing. He would always dress up. I mean, he decked himself out, just really would deck himself out. And at one time, we switched his license plate in the back of his car to saying, "I'm gay." So he drove around for over a week, not realizing he had his license plate on. And he was always wondering why people would drive up and wave at him and smile and things like this. It was so funny with this guy, but he had such a good sense of humor about it. And we would get him all the time with doing different stuff with him on the set, just with one time coming into my camper, we did a whole bucket of water routine. I knew he was coming to the camper. When he opened up the door, the bucket of water fell on top of him. But he was a great sport. He was a good guy. And if I had the chance to work with him again, I'd work with him in a heartbeat. He was such a funny guy. I've lost touch with him. I have no idea if he's still in the business at all. But I think most of the pranks pretty much happen on set with the cast, though. That was kind of the main thing to do all the time. Keith Hamilton Cobb, I talked about this last night as well. Keith Hamilton Cobb, who played Tyr Anasazi on Andromeda, if you watch the series, he leans on everything. Every scene, he's got to be leaning on something. So, and there was one scene where on the Eureka Maru, and myself and the other 5 actors, we all decided, because his character runs onto the ship, and all of us were leaning heavily on something as he runs in. And he ran in to see, we're running, the camera's running. He runs in, he starts saying his first line, he stops, he looks at each one of us. He goes, "The hell with all of you," and he walks off the set. But we had to do it. He's just such a heavy leaner. Oh, and then I wanted, because I'm a basketball player, so I wanted, in the future, I said basketball will still be around. So I wanted one of the bay pods of Andromeda, this huge ship, to have a basketball hoop. Then I said, you can put lights on it, whatever you want to do to make it look futuristic, but can't really change. Basketball is basketball. There's much to it. So we had a scene, and Keith, big, strong guy, 6'5", he's just big muscles and stuff. So we did a scene where he joins me when I'm shooting. I'm in there, it was Captain Dylan Hunt's thinking place, to go and just to shoot around, shoot some baskets. And he and I had to do a scene together. So he grabs the basketball in the scene, and we start, and this guy, he's a 6'5" black man, he's massive, he's a New York City guy, was so unathletic. And it blew my mind. And he looks at me and goes, "What, because I'm a 6'5" black guy from New York City, you think I should play basketball?" And I said, "Well, yes." I said, pardon my stereotype, but pretty much everybody in New York, they're on this, I mean, I've spent plenty of time there, and that's what fills the basketball courts, and they make up about 80% of the NBA too. So I just thought it was so funny. I said, "Dude, you fit the prototype," because he was a big guy. I mean, so strong. And I just kind of laughed at him, but he shook it off and just gave me a hard time. He goes, "Yeah, you white guys." You know, so we lost the lights again. Why did we lose the lights? They only stay on a short amount of time? Okay.
There is one thing that I noticed. You were on 2 awesome and big shows. You guest appeared in many other shows, but there were 2 shows you were actually not on, but almost. So you were in talks for the role of Dean Cain as Superman in Lois and Clark, and what I found most interesting, for Mulder in the X-Files.
For the X-Files, yeah. I got down. But I was, the Lois and Clark, I actually, when Dean and I did our last screen test with Terry Hatcher, my manager called me that night in my apartment in Santa Monica, California, and said, "You got the role." And went out with her and friends, and we were so excited. I'm gonna be Superman. It was really cool. And then the next morning, they get a call and they said, "You know what? We've changed our mind. We're going Dean Cain." Now this is the hard thing of being an actor. It's hard enough to get a job anywhere because you're up against so many people for the role, and so that just killed me. But 3 months later, of course, I ended up getting Hercules. Dean Cain has always been a good friend. Dean's a great guy. Has he been here yet, Dean?
Not yet.
You got to get Dean Cain to come. You would love him. So I always like to tell people, I say, this is what I told Dean, I said, "Yeah, you know, my show in 7 years became the most watched TV show in the world. Yours went 3 years and got canceled. So I'm okay with the way things worked out." But I got to tell you how I got the role of Hercules. When they first called me up to read for it, I kind of went, "Hey, you know, I'm a big guy, but they're going to want some big steroid, no-neck bodybuilder." He said, No. They want a guy that looks like a decathlete type of body build, athletic, but not like huge. So when I went and read I did a good job. They called me back a week later. Did a good job. They called me back a week later. They called me back 7 times. They auditioned 2,800 actors in North America for the role. So the very last time was down to the last 3 guys. I was one of the 3 guys, obviously. And I get there, and you're on a stage like this at Universal, and there was about 50 people from Universal Studios, men and women that are high-power executives in the television world. And Sam Raimi was in the front row, and they said, I said to him, I said, okay, you never change the scene. It's always the same scene. Nobody gives me any direction. What do you guys want from me? And Sam goes, no, I like what you're doing. We just read one more time. And so I read with the actor, finished the scene, and then Sam hit the woman next to him, and she goes, oh, I'm supposed to ask you to take your shirt off. And I was in good shape. If you remember, I was pretty ripped up. So I took the shirt off, and they went, oh, okay. And I said, yeah, I'm a lot bigger if my clothes are off. So then Sam Raimi says to me, I'm standing there, Sam says, so Kevin, if you get the role, would you be willing to shave your chest and your stomach? And I went, oh, Sam, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted a man for this role. And I started to walk off the stage. And it got a big laugh. And they said, don't worry, we'll call you, we'll let you know soon. So I left 2 days later up to Vancouver. Do you guys remember a show with Michael Chiklis called The Commish? So I did a show called The Commish up in Vancouver, and they called me 3 days later and said that I got the role. So I walked back on the set. Michael Chiklis played the Thing in the Fantastic Four. He was the big rock creature. I walked on the set and I told Michael, I said, hey, don't give me any crap anymore because I'm now half God. And that's how it all took off. So it was all history from there. So it was pretty cool.
We still have time for, I think, one final question. So is there anybody? Yes, front row.
Front row.
That was fast.
It's Stephanie.
Yes. Kannst du bitte übersetzen für mich?
Ja, gerne.
Okay. Es gibt bei Hercules 2 Folgen, wo die Darsteller die Leute, die die Serie machen, darstellen. Und da wollte ich wissen, ob das Absicht war, also vom Studio vorgegeben, oder ob das entstanden ist am Set.
Blue. My favorite color is blue. Oh, that's not what you asked? I'm sorry.
No, she said she works there. No. I hope I didn't forget the question already. No, she asked that in 2 episodes of Hercules, there are people playing, actors playing studio executives. Was that like something the studio demanded for you to do, this tongue-in-cheek sort of humor, or did you come up with it?
No, I didn't come up with it. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was so much fun. The whole idea was, I was really Hercules, playing an actor named Kevin Sorbo, but I really was Hercules. And I loved when they came to the idea, and they had the other actors, Bruce Campbell, I mean, he grew up with Rob Tappert. He did Tappert's voice perfectly. And I remember there was one scene where everybody got into the urinal to go bathroom, and they started whistling the theme song to Hercules, which I thought was just hilarious. No, I love doing stuff like that. I mean, I love that kind of humor, as I said, and I think that's what made the show fun for people all around the world, was that the show didn't take itself, I mean, there were serious episodes, but as a whole, it was always just a fun ride. And I think that's why the show grew in itself. Xena was the 3rd-year spinoff. Young Hercules with a 20-year-old Ryan Gosling was our 5th-year spinoff. And as I mentioned before, there were so many copycat shows. By the time we spun off Xena that same year, Sinbad, Tarzan, Robin Hood, Conan, Sheena, all these other shows came out, and that's what Hollywood does. If something's successful, people want to copy it. So, but it was an honor to do that role. I had so much fun doing that series. It was fun.
So, Kevin, thanks a lot for coming to Austria for the Austria Comic Con. Thanks a lot for talking to us. Ladies and gentlemen, let me hear it for Kevin Sorbo.